Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to our October the 12th Board of Education meeting, our regularly scheduled meeting this evening. We apologize for a few minutes late as our executive session did run over for a few moments. I would ask that you would stand now, those of you here, for a moment of silence. And I would like to remind you that we did have a student in our school system that was tragically killed in a car accident this week, and we certainly want to remember that family and the family of those that were associated with that accident as well. So if you would bow your heads for just a moment of silence. Thank you. Now, if you join with me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd also like to note that our student member, Leah Will, is not feeling well tonight, won't be joining us. So, Leah, we hope if you're watching, we hope you get better soon. We'll see you next month. The first order of business is to approve the agenda, so I'll take a motion to approve the public session. Motion to approve. So moved by Dr. Paul, second by Mr. Van Sickle. Those in favor of the agenda as presented, signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. And the agenda is approved. Are there any additions or corrections to the September 14, 2021 public session minutes? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve those minutes? So moved by Rodney, seconded by Monica. All those in favor of approving the September 14th minutes, signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Approval of the September 22nd, 2021 public session minutes. Are there any corrections or additions to those minutes? Hearing none, take a motion. Mr. Van Sickle, seconded by Dr. Paul. Those in favor of accepting the September 22nd, 2021 public session minutes, signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. And those are approved as well. And lastly, the approval of the September 30th, 2021 public session minutes. Any corrections or additions?
I have one correction.
Okay.
When you look at 3, recess and adjournment, the time, I believe, it says the public session recessed at 4:40 p.m. I believe it should be 6 p.m.
She's correct.
She's correct. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Rick, for finding that typo. Anything else? Anybody else? Okay. We have a motion on the floor. Making a motion. I'll make it. Okay. Dr. Paul, seconded by Rodney. Any other corrections?
No.
Okay. All those in favor of approval of the minutes, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those against, nay. And they are approved. Okay, Superintendent Baker, you're on for the closed session summaries and announcements.
Okay, the Board of Education met in executive session on Tuesday, September 14th, 2021 at 4:04 p.m. under Authority 3-305 of the General Provisions Article of the Annotated Code of Maryland to discuss the following items: review of executive session minutes, personnel topics pursuant to 3-305B1, negotiation topics pursuant to 3-305B9, and administrative function topics. Jason Van Sickle made a motion to move to executive session, and Matthew Paw seconded the motion. Thereafter, the board unanimously voted to close the session with a yea vote from Rodney Gutfelty, Matthew Paw, Monica Rinker, and Jason Van Sickle. Jason Van Sickle made a motion to approve the executive session agenda, and Matthew Paw seconded the motion. Thereafter, the board unanimously voted to approve the agenda with a yea vote from Rodney Gutfelty, Matthew Paw, Monica Rinker, and Jason Van Sickle. The topics discussed in the closed session included the following: executive session minutes, August 10th, 2021. Matthew Paw made a motion to approve the minutes. Jason Van Sickle seconded the motion. Final resolution, motion carried with yea votes from Monica Rinker, Rodney Gutfelty, Matthew Paw, and Jason Van Sickle. August 24th, 2021, executive session minutes. Matthew Paw made a motion to approve the minutes, and Monica Rinker seconded the motion. Final resolution, motion carried with yea votes from Monica Rinker, Rodney Gutfelty, Matthew Paw, and Jason Van Sickle. Personnel, certificated staffing, Dr. Jane Wilderson, Director of Human Resources, presented the recommended certificated staffing to the board for their approval. Dr. Wilson also shared non-certificated staffing updates. The board took action on the certificated staffing recommendations in the public session under the consent agenda. Dr. Wilson also provided the board an update on an employee issue. The board discussed the matter but did not take any action on the topic. Negotiations, GCA GAFSA request. Dr. Wilson and Mrs. Allison Schweitzer, Director of Finance, shared a request from the GCA GAFSA bargaining group. The board discussed the request but did not take any action on this topic. Administrative function, the board discussed various administrative function topics. The board considered these topics but did not take any action on these items. Jason Van Sickle made a motion to close executive session with Matthew Paw seconding the motion. Motion carried with yea votes from Monica Rinker, Rodney Gluck-Felty, Matthew Paw, and Jason Van Sickle. The executive session ended at 6:25 p.m. Mr. Tom Woods, Board President, Mrs. Monica Rinker, Board Vice President, and Board members, Mr. Rodney Gluck-Felty, Dr. Matthew Paw, and Mr. Jason Van Sickle were in attendance. Also in attendance for part or all of the meetings were Mrs. Barbara Baker, Superintendent, Mr. Brandon Hoover, Board Attorney, Dr. Jane Wilson, Director of Human Resources, Dr. Nicole Miller, Chief Academic Officer, Mrs. Allison Schweitzer, Director of Finance, Mr. Rich Wislowski, Director of Maintenance, Facilities, Operations, and Transportation, and Ms. Karen Brewer, Executive Assistant to the Superintendent. The board met virtually via Zoom in executive session on Tuesday, September 22nd, 2021 at 4:17 p.m. under Authority 3-305 of the General Provisions Article of the Annotated Code of Maryland to discuss a personnel topic pursuant to 3-305B1. Mr. Woods conducted another roll call and requested confirmation that attendees were alone at the meeting. The topics discussed in the closed session included the following: mid-year discussion of the superintendent's action plan. The board discussed the action plan, did not take any action on this topic. Matthew Paw made a motion to close executive session, and Jason Van Sickle seconded the motion. Motion carried with yea votes from Monica Rinker, Rodney Gluck-Felty, Matthew Paw, and Jason Van Sickle. The executive session ended at 6:16 p.m. Mr. Tom Woods, Board President, Mrs. Monica Rinker, Board Vice President, and Board members, Mr. Rodney Gluck-Felty, Dr. Matthew Paw, and Mr. Jason Van Sickle were in attendance. Ms. Barbara Baker, Superintendent, was also in attendance for part of the meeting. The Board of Education met virtually via Zoom in an executive session on Tuesday, September 30th, 2021 at 3:32 p.m. under Authority 3-305 of the General Provisions Article of the Annotated Code of Maryland to discuss the following items: personnel topics pursuant to 3-305B1 and administrative function topics. Jason Van Sickle made a motion to approve the executive session agenda, and Matthew Paw seconded the motion. Thereafter, the board unanimously voted to approve the agenda with a yea vote from Rodney Gluck-Felty, Matthew Paw, Monica Rinker, and Jason Van Sickle. Personnel certificated staffing. Dr. Jane Wilson, Director of Human Resources, presented a recommended certificated staffing member to the board for their approval. The board took action on the certificated staffing recommendation in the public session under the consent agenda. Administrative function. The board discussed various administrative function topics. The board considered these topics but did not take any action on these items. Recess and adjournment. The executive session recessed at 4:40 p.m. The board returned to executive session at 6:05 p.m. to continue discussions regarding an administrative function topic. Matthew Paw made a motion to close the meeting, and Monica Rinker seconded the motion. Final resolution. Motion carried with yea votes from Monica Rinker, Rodney Gluck-Felty, Matthew Paw, and Jason Van Sickle. The board adjourned the executive session at 6:41 p.m. Mr. Tom Woods, Board President, Ms. Monica Rinker, Board Vice President, and Board members, Mr. Rodney Gluck-Felty, Dr. Matthew Paw, and Jason Van Sickle were in attendance. Also in attendance for part or all of the meeting were Mrs. Barbara Baker, Superintendent, Mr. Brandon Hoover, Board Attorney, Dr. Jane Wilson, Director of Human Resources, Dr. Nicole Miller, Chief Academic Officer, Mrs. Karen Brewer, Executive Assistant to the Superintendent. Ready for announcements?
Sure.
Okay. October 14th, which is this Thursday, students will be dismissed 3 hours early for staff development. This Friday, October 15th, schools are closed. October 16th is the Autumn Glory Tournament of Bands at Northern Garrett High School in the football field at 7:00 p.m. October 20th, new state superintendent Mohammed Chowdhury will visit Central Office and Southern Middle School from 8:30 a.m. to 2 p.m. October 22nd, the Interagency Commission on School Construction, the IAC, will visit Garrett County from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. with various visits to schools around the county. And on November 9th, that's the end of the first grading period, and the Board of Ed meeting in the central office at 6 p.m.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have some recognitions that we would like to make tonight, and the first one is the National School Lunch Week, which is October 11th to the 15th, 2021. I think, who is doing that? Is that you, Mr. Van Sickle?
It is. Take off my mask, Sergeant, just proclamation, so folks can hear me a little bit better. And this is a word is nice for me to give because it's one of my favorite subjects in school. So this week, October 11th through the 15th is National School Lunch Week. Official proclamation. Whereas the National School Lunch Program has served our nation admirably for 75 years through advanced practices in nutrition education. And whereas the National School Lunch Program is dedicated to the health and well-being of our nation's children. And whereas the National School Lunch Program has been joined through the years to many other excellent child feeding programs. And there is evidence of continued need for nutrition, education, and awareness of the value of school nutrition programs. Now, therefore, we, the Garrett County Board of Education, do hereby proclaim the week of October 11th through the 15th, 2021, as the National School Lunch Week, and encourage all residents to become aware and concerned about their children and their own nutritional habits, and hope to achieving a more helpful citizenry for today and the future.
Thank you, Mr. Germain, for
We have a camera?
a very difficult 2 years in the foods program. It's not been the easiest thing for you to do, but I'm sure the people of Garrett County are very thankful that we have everything's been provided to them. Thank you, all of your staff. Yeah, we need to take a picture. We've got somebody there.
And they, as we've said many times, they've certainly, his whole entire department certainly stepped up to continue to feed students and families during the pandemic.
Have you got what you've been waiting for? Was it the refrigerator?
I have not. Maybe next.
Yeah, it's okay. Does anybody?
That's not my one.
I actually have a nice phone now,
That's cool.
but I don't know how to use it. Okay.
Do our images show up? If so, we're good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I just got it.
Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Got the frame, she's got the frame camera.
Just doesn't know how to get it off.
Yeah, call people all the time. Call them all.
Okay, our next presentation will be the National School Bus Safety Week, October 18th, 22nd, 2021. I think Ms. Richter is doing that.
National School Bus Safety Week Proclamation. As he stated, it's October 18th to the 22nd. The theme, be safe, know the danger zone. Whereas children are our nation's most precious resource, representing our nation's future and protecting their needs to be our highest priority. And whereas America's school buses comprise the largest mass transportation fleet in the country, being 2.5 times the size of all other forms of mass transportation combined. And whereas school buses meet higher construction specifications and inspection standards than any other vehicle. Which that was today, correct? Bus inspection? Yes. Whereas school bus drivers meet higher qualification, training, and testing standards than any other drivers. And whereas National School Bus Safety Week, which dates back to 1966, recognizes the hard work and dedication of school transportation personnel, especially the many school bus drivers who ensure a safe journey each and every day. And whereas the thousands of pupil transportation professionals throughout every state work continuously to promote the safety of our nation's school-age children and to improve upon an already stellar safety record through national conferences, driving and poster competitions, and local medical promotions emphasizing the importance of school bus safety both on and off the school bus. Now therefore, we, the Garrett County Board of Education, do hereby proclaim the third full week in October as National School Bus Safety Week and encourage all citizens to recognize the hard work and dedication of pupil transportation professionals, the excellent safety record of our school bus drivers, the benefits of school bus driver training, the importance of students obeying safety rules at all times, and the need for heightened vigilance on the part of all vehicle drivers when in the vicinity of school buses. That's the long proclamation.
As you know, it's challenging times, and I've stood in front of this group and said how wonderful this group of people are. Now with the COVID thing and the plan, you know, they're not our employees, and I always have to keep that in mind. But they still continue to go above and beyond and ask everything that the school system asks of them to keep the kids safe. But, you know, we don't have a shortage. They come to work every day, and we're very fortunate for that. And I'm thankful. When I get a chance, I always try to thank them, and so we'll just continue to work hard at this till we get through this. Okay.
At our first meeting, I think we said how thankful we were that so many districts were going through shortages, and our drivers stepped right up. And some of the worst conditions. You can see people smile in their eyes. Yes, you can. I'm gonna frown in this one.
Okay, our last recognition is Gtps Wellness Committee, 2021 Business Award goes, and it will be
Okay. Well, I'm happy to announce this wonderful recognition that our Wellness Committee received from the Maryland Business Association. And it was, you know, personally, I know the Wellness Committee does a wonderful job, and it's been challenging too with the pandemic. It's incredible how the work of that committee is probably just multiplied in urgency and in scope in the last year or two. But I'll just explain to you a little bit what the Healthiest Maryland Business Wellness Exemplar Award is. And Garrett County Public Schools was recently awarded the 2021 Healthiest Maryland Businesses Wellness Exemplar Award. Healthiest Maryland Businesses is a collaborative of Maryland businesses with a shared mission of improving health through worksite wellness efforts. According to the group, the Exemplar Award means that businesses have well-established worksite wellness practices that promote a culture of health at all levels. Their work is guided by a workplace health improvement plan and implement all 4 strategies: policy, programming, benefits, and environmental supports. These businesses and organizations conduct evaluation activities, which is used to inform future planning and implementation. If something works, keep doing it. If something is not working too well, you make changes. Garrett County Public Schools and recognized businesses were publicly honored at this year's Maryland Health and Wellness Symposium, which was conducted virtually on September 15, 2021. The group previously issued gold, silver, and bronze awards, and Garrett County Public Schools won the bronze award in 2019. So this is the second time they were honored. So congratulations, members of the Wellness Committee. Thank you.
The award.
Oh, well, okay.
I'm doing it in the picture now.
And this just says Healthiest Maryland Businesses Exemplar Wellness at Work recognition, Garrett County Public Schools, in recognition of your commitment to workplace wellness. So here's here from Wellness.
Jane and Becky?
Becky, undoubtedly. Oh, let me see my mask. Almost forgot. I'm coming. No.
Okay.
Good job.
Thank you, great job.
Okay, we'll move on to new business. The first item is a quarterly financial report. Mrs. Schweitzer?
Good evening. As has become customary, I am presenting a quarterly financial report. We have completed the first quarter, and these are unaudited financials, expenses. One point of note before you get too deep into any of these numbers is that of the about $900,000 ahead in spending that we are over the prior year, MSDE is very behind on getting their notice of grant awards turned around. So we have quite a bit of instructional salary, supplies, others, and fixed charges that are currently hitting the unrestricted budget, but will be moved into those restricted funding sources once the appropriate approvals come. So that, I just wanted to lay that out. Other than that, there is not, in the unrestricted budget, there's not a lot of unexpected items that are happening. Our legal fees are very low compared to prior years, so that's nice. And
Thank you, Brandon.
that means we aren't having any issues. So our home and hospital remains low right now. That's another expense that fluctuates from period to period. And our utilities right now are pretty consistent. So are there any questions about this?
Any specific questions about any of the board members' financial report? Yes, Mom.
I just have one. When you look at instructional supplies, what the revised budget for 2021 compared to the revised budget from 2021 to 2022, there's a difference. Instructional supplies, like would that have been where our books would have been, or what would that have been?
Yes, if you recall, last fiscal year, we had a purchase of the ARC reading series for elementary reading, So that is why there was that larger change in the budget.
And we was able to get all that we need, was that correct? I want to remember. Okay, thank you.
That purchase is complete.
Yes, so thank you.
Any other questions? Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Enrollment and revenue estimates. Ask Mr. Hummel to join.
Join you.
Presentation.
Good evening.
All right, so one of my new tasks that I've been given since becoming Director of Student Services is looking at enrollment. And I know last year, Mrs. Schweitzer took on the task. Usually you all were able to be notified with enrollment usually in January. But based on years and years, and I'll put my old hats on, and you know, I know enrollment in Garrett County has been a hot topic for many, many years. So I think Mrs. Schweitzer last year, and what we're trying to do today is give you some rough estimates based on what we're seeing so far this year. So let's flip through the PowerPoint, take a couple minutes to go over this. So the first slide you'll see here goes back, it's just an extension of what Mrs. Schweitzer had last year. Goes back to 2010. You can see where our enrollment was 4,084 total students. And since then, there's been a general decline each and every year since that time. There, probably from about 2013 to 17, it didn't drop as much, but, and like I said, I've watched board meetings for years and years. I know this is a hot topic, and there was always a projection, are we going to lose enrollment, are we not? And the projections are playing out that, you know, we're steadily losing enrollment. For the last 11 years, we've lost a total of 736.75 students, where we're going to be at this year, rough estimate. All right, we're still working on it to try to get a final figure. I think we have to send an enrollment figure to MSDE towards the end of November 20th, somewhere around there. So we're still making phone calls, trying to find students and make sure we're where we're at. But and I think we're in a pretty good place based on, and I'll explain that here in a little bit, of what we've been doing with student services to try to make sure of enrollment and where students are at. But the big concern that I see also, if you look at the last two, based on pandemic and also just the general decline, is that we lost 280 students. Okay. If you guys have any questions as I'm going through this, don't hesitate to ask.
Monica?
For somebody that might be watching and this is new to them, why is pre-K enrollment not on there? Can you explain that?
The reason pre-K enrollment isn't included is because that number is not included in our formula-based state aid or even our local state aid.
So,
You might also,
okay.
Allison, you might also, again, for those people who perhaps watching or don't know, what's the approximate loss of revenue for each student lost to our county?
Well, it depends on the demographics of the student, but a good estimate that we like to use is about $15,000. So that's a combination of state aid and the local maintenance of effort amount.
I think it's important for people to note that, simply because when you talk about losing almost 300 students, and you multiply that times $15,000 a student, you're talking $4.5 million out of a $52 million budget. It's a tremendous amount of loss for us.
Yeah,
That's why every student that's why we fret over this report every year, because this report dictates what the next year is going to look like.
Yeah, and that's why from day one when I came into the role, that we've been looking at trying to reach out and do different things to see where our students are, to see how we can support them, programs, all that kind of stuff too. So the next slide talks about the past year from 8/30/20 to 6/30/21. The main thing I want to show you here is that we see a decline in enrollment over the past year. It just wasn't right at the beginning of school. The first couple months, several months of school, we saw a huge drop for September, October, November, and into December. Then after December, it kind of slowed down there. So it wasn't just, all of a sudden with the pandemic and coming back, and, there was a good length of time there from the start of school last year that we saw a major decline in enrollment. So when you're trying to look at trends and what's causing students to leave our school system, so it just wasn't right at the beginning when we started school back up. And you can see there and there at the bottom, experienced a total decline of 62 students during the 2021 school year. Next slide has a couple pie graphs. I know it's tough to see probably up there, but what this explains is, our variance from September 30th of last year to what we're estimating this year. The first pie graph there is the Gcps exits and different color codes. Most of our students, the biggest color there is that our students are leaving to go to other systems, public school systems, whether that's in the state of Maryland, whether that's out of state. So we got almost 43% transferring to other school systems. After that, we have 35.1% that transferred to parent home instruction. The next category is other, 13.4%. And this could be a wide variety of things. It can be a student death. It could be students that decide to go for their GED. It could be, a lack of interest. There's a lot of different things that go in the category that if we broke them down, there's not a large number there, but combining all those withdrawals, we were at 13.4%. And then we had 8.5% of our exits go to non-public schools.
Can you explain the other public schools in more detail? I mean, you're saying they go out of the jurisdiction to a public school?
Yeah, like Allegheny County, they could go down to Baltimore. So it's people leaving Garrett County.
Oh, so they've actually left the county?
Yeah, and I know, like, with the mill closing, I know Mrs. Schweitzer mentioned last year about, the projection was that we're going to probably have family leave to look for jobs and that kind of stuff. So,
So that, that could be relabeled, parents relocated?
Relocated,
Could be.
correct.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. So then you look over at the middle one, Gcps Enrollment. Just like the biggest number is for exits is going to other public schools, the kids that actually come into Garrett County for the first time, we have 61% of those enrolling into our schools. So a majority of them are still enrolling into our public schools. After that, parent home instruction is 28%. The other is coming from, you know, wherever they were at, and then the non-public schools. We do have some coming back into us from non-publics. Any questions on that? And then the total change, Mrs. Schweitzer may have to help me out with this one because I'm still trying to learn all the lingo and everything. So, but more or less is just showing the change based on the exit enrollments, if I'm remembering correctly. This one actually has the graduates and that we had from last year that left us, and the kindergartners came in. So that's added into this chart to show that we actually had more students graduate than we actually had come in kindergarten.
Yeah,
So it's showing the
we've
difference.
talked about that as a disturbing trend,
Mhm.
that each year we seem to be graduating more kids than we're bringing into our kindergarten classes or pre-K classes, which is obviously what we are fighting against at this moment.
And if you dig into some of the numbers by grade, it is disturbing to look at, you know, it's a downhill trend in most grades. That it's not a stagnant or a positive in grades from year to year, it's a negative, which is a concern. All right, so our estimates right now is that for this school year, from last school year, we're looking at an estimated 142 students that we will be down compared to last year. Now it's Mrs. Stern.
And that's based on the enrollment September 30th, is that right?
Yes, September 30th count, correct.
So, as part of this that we shared last year and trying to keep the board, abreast of the trends that are happening, I did want to make sure that, we looked at with the full implementation of the blueprint and the Department of Legislative Services fiscal note of the estimates of what Garrett County Public Schools was predicted to receive in revenue. I want to make sure that the board understands that the Department of Legislative Services estimates were based off of assumptions. And one of the largest assumptions was that our enrollment would be flat to declining with a slight increase in, out in the fiscal 27-28 range. Right now, when we analyze what the discrepancy is between their assumptions and what our current trend is looking like, that's about a 7.7% variance decrease. And when you peel off the layers of the onion and you see what the special population decline is, it's between 9.1% down to 20% down. And as the board is aware, there are other pieces of state funding that Garrett County is awarded based upon our special education population, our English learners, and then also our farm students. So the chart that you see here shows the FY22 actual revenue amounts. That's what the board approved, and that was our state aid funding and our local maintenance of effort funding. And last year we enjoyed putting together a budget that had an increased amount of revenue. If you look at the Department of Legislative Services fiscal notes, they are estimating that in FY23, which is the budget cycle we're getting ready to kick off, the Garrett County would be receiving an estimated $53.9 million. However, if you prorate that amount based upon the specific pieces of funding and the student populations that correlate with that, we're estimating that it's going to be closer to $50.8 million, which overall is less than what we received in FY22. Now, there's a big, this is a projection and this is an estimate, MSDE is still formulating the templates for the state aid. The formulas are still being vetted. So as soon as we have better information, we will share that with the board. But we thought it was important that they were aware of the discrepancy between the Department of Legislative Services estimates and what we believe would be a closer estimation of our FY23 revenue.
Questions for Allison or John about any report, particularly the operating budget projections? Anybody have any questions?
Just a comment, I think you said that once numbers are finalized at the end of this month, you'll be able to give us by school a breakdown as far as enrollment.
Yes, we can do that, and also the number, the special population as
Perfect.
well.
Thank you.
And I'd be remiss to say, you know, a huge thank you to all my support staff. I mean, we've hit the ground running trying to make calls to kids, doing home visits, from Ms. Rubin, the PPW, secretary, Ms. Temple, you know, principals, social workers, counselors. We've, you know, watching attendance and having them call and document, and, you know, we're trying to make sure that we know where our kids are and that we're trying to educate them the best way we know how. So we'll continue to do that, make sure our kids are getting an education. So
I think it's important to note, for people watching, probably the most important sentence on that particular slide is the blueprint for Maryland's future legislation is in full effect for funding beginning fiscal year 2023. Next month, we will have a detailed report on what the blueprint for Maryland's future looks like for Garrett County. And obviously, over the next 3 or 4 years, the whole landscape of education in the state of Maryland is going to change like it's never changed ever. It's almost like creating a new educational template for the entire state, and it will have great ramifications on our county. One of those being our operating budget, and how that will change a lot of things that we do in our county. So I wanted to throw that out there for people to know that once the blueprint was made law, it will change a lot of things that happen in this county. Anything else? Anyone? Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, we may as well see if there are any.
I don't think there is. Sure.
Okay, no public comment.
Thank you.
Comprehensive maintenance plan for educational facilities, a revision of that plan. Ask Mr. Wozlowski to present that and answer any questions that we may have.
Good evening. The comprehensive maintenance plan that's presented, it's new. The IAC is our friend. I've changed the entire process, and I say that in a good way. We're really doing, I mean, I say that.
They're coming next week.
Yeah, they're coming next week. They've changed the entire process in terms of what they want to see in a comprehensive maintenance plan. So I think you were used to the one where it had the charts and we just showed you what vehicle we're going to place and all that. They're not interested in that. They really want to see some, you know, some data and things, and they really want to see the dollars that we're committing are supported to some of our maintenance backlog and those kind of things. We're not quite there yet because we do not have a system to track some of the things, so we're kind of working towards that. So what we put together to present this evening is a good step in that direction to kind of provide that for them. I'm not going to go through page by page. The table of contents, the organizational chart, the work management system, working through Mr. Gank and his IT staff. We created an iOS, is that correct, Jeff? It's a ticketing system. We have a lane for maintenance, we have a lane for operations, we have a lane for security, and a lane for IT, because a lot of them go together. And the maintenance staff are all given laptops and iPad minis, and so now we're all online and being able to be more responsive to tickets. It's also helping through the administrative assistants that we track where we're spending our money, how much tickets are costing, and those kind of things. And that's really what the IAC, they're really interested in preventative maintenance and those things. We had to identify how we kind of assess our facilities through the Educational Facilities Master Plan. We identified some of our challenges. They're cited in the report, how we do our preventative maintenance, environmental issues. And then I had to identify obviously our funding in terms of, that was the big piece. I had to thank Allison Schweitzer for incorporating that. They're really interested in see our funding here in Garrett County. And then the CIP and grants, and then the comprehensive maintenance plan is listed this year as pretty much what we're trying to get accomplished this year as part of our projects. And then I think there used to be a report that they talk about deferred maintenance. We're looking more at backlog maintenance, or things that are identified in each facility in the plan. These are real rough estimates of costs. And a lot of this will be tied back to the facility assessments, which we have the scores. We're waiting to present them to the board once we get some interpretations on a few other things. And then we did our roof replacement, boilers, and our blacktop schedule from the other report. And so there's a lot of new stuff in there for a read. It's not everything they're quite looking for yet, but we're moving in that direction. Okay.
Okay, questions for Mr. Wazlowski? It's a great report. I really like the way it's laid out.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I have a couple. When you look at page 7, under maintenance funding sources, a new sentence at the bottom, it's in red. It says Gcps currently has an estimated $115 million of identified backlog facility needs. So that means the funding wasn't there to support the project, basically, right?
Well, no, this would be all part of our strategic plan, and a number that, it's a number, but it's to say that we have this grand scale of projects that we need to complete. And, but that's just identifying that. So I wouldn't say it's not what we're doing, it's kind of tied to our strategic plan and where we're trying to move the school system.
Of things that you see could be addressed or some, right? Basically, this is the dollar amount to have all the projects done if they were complete, kind of.
And it's really a lot about the needs, the things we need to do, some of the bigger capital things, yes.
On page 9,
Okay.
under security enhancements, it says for fiscal year 2022, we plan to utilize $200,000 from the Maryland Center for School Safety to construct security vestibules at 4 more schools. So what, is that an elementary, middle, high? Is it a variety of schools?
Yeah, we did Friendsville, Rockford, Northern Middle, and then we'll have Northern High next summer for the FY. I apologize. That's FY21 money. This is through the Maryland Security, the grant. This would be for Route 40, Breland, Swan Meadow.
Okay. So it's schools that we'll be doing then?
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking then.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you brought to us before about the bipolar ionization. Are those like things that can be moved from room to room?
Now, that was phase 1. Those were the little portable units, the
Okay.
larger portable ones. These are the permanent ones that are going in the air handlers.
For the money for that part, the $750,000?
Phase 2, yes.
Okay. And then when you look at page 10, I guess it kind of can go there from page 9, it's the top sentence. Facility systems.
System.
Yes, there's $38,000 of state agency school funding intended to repair and replace public address systems. So what would that fall under, repair, replace public address systems?
Those are PA systems within the schools.
Okay, public address.
Yeah, public
Okay.
address.
I wasn't sure with that. Yeah, we have it on, was it Northern Middle, one of them?
Northern Middle is one of them, and we got approval on part of the 38,000.
Uh-huh.
So we're trying to decide. We just had a conversation before about where to then apply whatever one, the next one, I guess, in need. Okay.
Yeah,
But Northern Middle is the one we need to address.
well, I wasn't,
immediately.
I've seen PA, I didn't see public address, that's what had me confused.
Okay.
And then that work management, that OS ticketing work management system was what you were just talking about. That's a good thing to have.
Yeah. Well,
And then when you look at page 12, preventive maintenance, it says GCPS continues to annually allocate funds for preventive maintenance. Is that where we have a piece in our budget for, or no? That's for emergency.
Yeah, that's for
Correct.
emergency.
So this is something different then.
Yeah, this, for looking at your equipment, making
Yeah.
mechanical upgrades, inspections, those kind of things, yeah.
So it's just money that we have built into the budget for this part, correct?
Yes.
And it would be, you have things listed, okay. But we also have, what I did say, the emergency for, there's a repair, something comes unexpected out of our control that
Yep.
has to be
Yeah.
addressed.
I listed that as one of our challenges.
Yes.
That when things break, especially if they cost a lot of money, that's a big challenge for us to overcome.
And then you look at 14, service contracts, which I remember some things we've seen, you know, like we would have insurance brought to us, the food vendors, and you have a bunch of them listed. Now, like our trash pickup, is that a yearly contract too?
So that's under operation trash.
Okay.
This is maintenance, yeah.
So, well, I was thinking
Yeah.
maintenance because of custodians, but it's,
We do have a contract for that service, but it's just under the custodial side of the
okay,
operation side.
so that's why, okay. And can you explain, like on page 15, you have FY22 CIP grant projects. What is the difference between a security storefront and a security vestibule?
I have pictures from my slide, but when we put a storefront in, we just put a glass storefront across a hallway to kind of create the idea of a vestibule. It's not the full vestibule where it's the smaller space with all the different hardwares and entry access systems. This is just something that we're trying to do, you know, to create a vestibule in the short term, until we can do something a little bit more long term.
And a space that we already have, basically.
Space that we already have, correct. Yep.
Okay.
And I'll have some examples of that coming up in my presentation, okay?
Mhm. And I see we have our playgrounds here. Did we get our stuff for the playground at Northern Middle for Grantsville?
Yeah,
For
that was done this week.
Okay.
The asphalt was done, and then we were supposed to have the swings last week. Still trying to locate the swings, but, they should be here soon to finish that.
Okay. Okay, when you look at page 16, location, Axon Elementary, this is just more an explanation. Johnson Controls equipment replacement, $30,000. Now, is that something that would be under our contract that we have with them, or we have to replace that within our?
These were
budget?
devices that needed to be replaced.
Uh-huh,
Some kind of VRE sensors on certain things that was part of the original, but they were not under any kind of warranty.
okay,
So in order to keep the building running, keep it to where we need it to be, they just needed to be replaced, so they came out of the maintenance. Johnson Controls did the work, don't get it wrong.
right, well, I've seen that,
It
Johnson,
was
I
not
wanted to
part
make
of it.
sure.
Yeah.
Okay. And you have a lot of milling and patching, like the potholes and parking lots and all that.
Yeah.
Do we have like a county roads, like a partnership or something that they do it for us? Or do we have to get an outside vendor?
No, it's a good partnership. We have a good partnership with county roads in general, and so we capitalize on that. They give us very good rates. They kind of bill us more for the material and not so much for the labor, which is very helpful to get more done with, you know, lesser allocation. So,
Okay. I thought that you said that before.
I leverage that relationship a lot
Right,
in terms of just a good relationship with that.
well,
Yeah, for a lot of reasons.
right. When you have Hickory Environmental Center in here, the Nature Hall, it says renovate Nature Hall office and health suite, Nature Hall. Is that where the walls are painted? Is that what the Nature Hall is?
No,
Or
we're adding a health suite on the back.
Uh-huh,
We just got the drawings completed and to get through the permitting part. But in the back of the office, there's no health suite there.
right.
And there's a little bit of absence of storage. So we're gonna kind of square that building off and then, you know, add a health suite for that. Because right now, if you've been there, they have a sick student literally sitting right behind in the main office. And it's not Yeah, so we're gonna try to, provide that health suite.
Okay,
Very, very much needed. Very much.
okay. So then our paintings will still be good. That won't be affected. That was my.
Touch your paintings, no.
Okay, when you look at Yaw Glades Elementary on page 19, 35,000, how you say that, Metaspace conversion, is that like our heating or what is it?
That's another Johnson Controls.
Uh-huh.
This is a Metasys conversion. Metasys is the software system. But it needed to be upgraded because some part of IT license went away or was dropped. It's just a natural thing where we have to just
Mm-hmm.
purchase the new software and kind of upgrade it. Again, they do the work, we provide the funding, keep that
Right, okay.
environmental control going.
And that does the whole school then, I guess?
Yes.
When you look at your backlog, maintenance, and CIP projects, starting on page 21, and that's saying that things that we see should be done, I guess that's the word you want to say, and like some of them have the fiscal year, does that mean, if they say like fiscal year 23, or
Yeah,
does that mean they're on the CIP that year, or is
Yeah,
that
this
just?
is, I believe I put these, I went through the CIP as adopted by the board, and just kind of give you an idea of where we have future dollars allocated to try to take care of some of this backlog. They wanted to see that we're moving forward to try to take care of these things.
Mhm.
Again, I can't emphasize enough that more than ever with the IAC, everything is connected. Whether it's the education facilities plan, they're looking, I mean, everything now is really
Right.
put together to really make some really good decisions, which I really appreciate, actually to get some of the information to them,
Mhm.
but it gets very well worth the time.
When you look at it, your estimated cost for backlog maintenance CIP projects on page 20, it looks like the one that has the most backlog listed on there would be Southern Middle,
Yes,
and then Broadford, I see.
Yeah.
And
yep, and we have, plans as we move forward adopted by the board to address those, schools.
that was my,
Okay?
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you, Rich.
Thank you.
Not a problem.
Very well done. Project update, you have some, all of us have
Yeah.
beautiful pictures here.
I have some pictures for you. Before I start, I gotta thank, as Mr. Hummel indicated, my philosophy is under Barb's leadership, or Superintendent Baker's leadership, and a lot of people in this room, is I clear the hurdles, get through the red tape, and the guys do the work, and the girls do the work. And I can't, between the team we have, under the leadership of Matt Zimmerman, Larry Carr, even the head custodians now, and custodians are pitching in. It's a group effort. We work very hard with Jeff and the group that's really trying to work together to maybe be more efficient. But I can't present this without saying, and I can't thank them enough. And the one individual I have to thank is Allison Schweitzer, because everything here is tied to a dollar amount. And we have some animated discussions and different of opinion at times, in a nice way. But we get through things and we get a lot done, and I can't thank. It can be very taxing at times. So I have for you just some real basic pictures. A lot of this is listed under pages, I think it's 16 through 20 in the comprehensive maintenance plan. By all means, this is not a picture of everything. I just I did some of the highlights. Sorry,
and I believe we're able to show your storefront and your.
yeah. I'm gonna hit here. This one? There you go. Okay, security vestibule enhancements at Northern Middle and Broadford. The one on the left is your vestibule where it's being closed. The window, we're still waiting for it's the old bank window, I guess, as we call it, the bulletproof one that has the thing underneath. We're still waiting for that. That's back order. And then the one on the right is Broadford. That's more of the storefront. where we put the glass across, just to stop people from being able to enter the school, without going into the main office, okay? So that was done through the security grant, okay? This is the one from both sides. This is Friendsville. You go in the main door now, you cannot go directly into the building where all the students are. That door stops you, and then the picture on the right is looking back out towards into the lobby. Okay, so the same concept. It has a card reader on there, so staff can still go in between. However, it blocks the public from going forward. Again, from the safety and security grant. Okay. We started doing some tinting. You know, we had some issues when you talk about putting blinds on. The fire marshal had some exceptions to the blinds, but as much as blinds, as you have blinds in your house, and they're used a lot, they fall apart, and so we kind of landed on some tinting, working with Clark Warnick and the security team to kind of see how that worked. That's Northern Middle, that's the main office. You can't really see in, but when you're on the other side, you can kind of see out. We're still experimenting with the different variations of tint to see what's going to be best, and that's the accident vestibule. We just put some tint there, so we're still experimenting to see where this goes. I think a lot of this, the lights are crucial. You got to shut the lights off as part of the plan. That really helps not to see that. And it's just the idea that when you're behind the tint, you just can't, you can't see in. And we've got a lot of positive response from Northern Middle. We did do all the ones in the lobby there, the community room across. Kind of looks okay, but it just makes the staff feel a little more. So we'll expand this program. It's kind of inexpensive to tint a window. So as we see needs across the school system for safety and security, we'll continue this as a way to really enhance our safety as we go forward. Okay. Not the best pictures, but this is the new accident playground. If you go out the back door, it's now directly to the left. We eliminated the one on the farthest part. We kind of made it all one big campus or one big playground. We're going to this engineered wood fiber, which is the ADA compliant. It's a little fluffy there, but once the weather gets in it packs down, like we did at Yacht Blades, wheelchairs, and it can go across it no problem. So that's what was one of the components, and then just upgrading the equipment, get it all the ADA compliant. All right, and then we have plans to take the rest of the pea gravel on the other side out, and then so the whole thing will be engineered fiber. So the whole playground will then be accessible for ADA. Okay. So that was part of, I think, last year's operating budget. Normal carpet replacement, this is Northern High's office. We also did the guidance office there, just to show we went to just squares now instead of carpets. Or if there's a spill or a stain or something, you can just remove one square and replace it real quick. And there's a lot of different variety of colors and patterns. Give the school a little bit of chance to, to kind of, give them some leeway to kind of do things. So that's kind of a normal operating thing. This is our Replace Carpet to Tile initiative. This was part of ESSER. Remember, as part of the funding, they don't want absorbable surfaces. So we took the opportunity to spend ESSER money. So that's the media center. On the left, that used to be all carpet, and now that's a nice tile. The school picked out the pattern. And then we also did, I think that's the first room on the left, I think, which now is 4th grade. That had some really bad carpet in there. So we kind of did the same thing there. All right, so we take out the carpet, put in the towel, for the sanitary, for all those things. And it's a lot easier on our custodial staff, and it doesn't wear as we go forward.
Would the ESSER money only pay for students' faces? The reason my question was, could we have done that at Northern in place of carpet in the office?
Yeah,
Use the same.
We could. Yeah, I think we could. Yeah, we could have.
I mean, it seems kind of counterintuitive to me that for wanting it to be easy to maintain.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think a lot of times in offices, they like the office sector.
Well, and the acoustics, but I would also say at Friendsville, my guess is, and it is a guess because I'm speaking off the cuff, is that they eat in the classrooms, and we're dealing with younger people, and messes occur much more frequently at a situation like that.
Well, personally, I would think and I don't know anything about it, but if I were doing the school up, everything would be in vinyl.
Yeah, everything.
It's just easier to maintain. I know.
Easier to
Southern,
clean.
it's awful. It's awful to have this carpet places.
Yeah.
It's awful.
This is another we did, on the left is the Broadford. That was carpet to the sides of the media center. They picked out the design there. And on the right is actually a classroom at Southern Middle. We did 8 classrooms in the back there and had that old, pretty bad looking carpet. Also in that picture, the paneling was painted, to kind of, and then just put some new lights in those classrooms. So haven't done a lot for Southern Middle in a while. So we took the opportunity to use this money to not only do that, but to kind of just brighten the space up a little bit. So, when you get a chance to go to Southern Middle, you'll chances for those classrooms to see that. This is also Southern Middle. I'm supposed to have a red hall and a blue hall, but I got 2 reds on there, but that's just a normal, the halls were getting worn out back through the media center. So there's a red hall and a blue hall, and they kind of use that administratively too. A lot of it has to do with safety and security. Now we're identifying pathways out of buildings, so we're kind of building in, the color of the tile to kind of help as part of the safety and security plan, as we go forward, okay? We have some ADA access issues that we had to address. This is, the basic standard curb cutouts, for wheelchair access. We just had to add them. There's Northern Middle on the left, there wasn't one there. And also at there was one at Yonkers, but where it was didn't make a lot of sense. We're just always trying to do that. Very conscious of ADA requirements now and really trying to make sure our facilities have the proper access. This is the Hickory, the pads out, those are the outdoor teaching spaces. And they were really bad in terms of, so we decided to, redo that, and, the bottoms of those pavilions were all dry rotted, so we had to cut them off and kind of make something that works still there. We also relocated one down for another classroom space to look at the trees or do some kind of experiment there. We worked really well with that. While I'm on there with Hickory, working with Mr. Shank, if you've been up there lately, he's redoing paths, we're building steps in the back. He's got that whole, he's done a lot of good things there this summer. You talk about, I referenced in one of the reports about we had some extra time with COVID to really get some things done. So he really did a lot of things, to enhance that facility there during that time. This is kind of I just took this picture. This is I'm calling it a play area. It will be a basketball court. We'll put hoops on each side. This is right across the driveway there at Northern Middle. And then the swings will be to the right of that. We're still waiting to get in. But that was just done this past week. So to provide them an outdoor play area, and then the swings as we go forward at the campus. This is from last year's money, but I just wanted to show you that we had a lot of the reports you'll see. We're now ADA compliant with the pool lifts at Hickory. Was something that was needed for a lot of years. I checked you for that because I believe that was her funding that took care of that, I believe. So we got that installed from Harris Pools. I believe did that. All right, and then this was from last year also. I don't know if you had a chance to see the new marquee signs that are up at the high schools. I think they're a nice feature, for the schools. A couple other updates I wanted to just kind of, I didn't put on the thing. The lighting initiative that we have done at the other high schools, or other schools, we're now extending that to Friendsville and Hickory. So we want to continue that with the light panels. If you've been in the schools and seen the new lighting, it really makes a big difference in terms of our facilities. I'm working with Crellin. There's some playground revitalization needed there. So I'm working with the principal, looking for some funding to try to do some things. A lot of that wood is rotting. I know that was a community project before, so I think we're going to try to work together to see if we can help work together in the community to solve that problem. We talked about the health suite at Hickory. Speaking of health suites, there's been an emphasis on those. So we added a lot of electrical plugs, trying to do some things with storage and some of those. The Southern High fence started this week around the football field. Should be done by the end of the week. Mr. Gladstone, we have begun the lead testing.
Okay.
That program started.
How's that working out?
It's working. We need 700 or almost 1,000 bottles. We can get 200. So we'll work through it, but we've started that and we'll identify everything that needs to be, the money's there. The Healthy Schools Fund will allow us to replace, and you'll see when I come back with the state's, our facility assessments, our plumbing upgrades, our fixtures are got some pretty low marks.
Well, just to review, we were in compliance with the,
Yes, we were.
EPA water quality,
Mhm.
requirements, which was, 20 parts per billion. And then
Yep.
the state wanted to make everybody go down to 5 parts per billion.
Yep.
And so I don't know how many of our water
Yeah.
systems were lower than 5, but
Yeah.
probably not many.
And it's not ideal because a lot of that water's been sitting. So it's not only the test and the retest and all that, it's the flushing and
So,
getting,
yeah, so you're testing as soon as you gotta flush it out.
gotta flush it for, yeah.
An hour or something.
Yeah, it's at least a half hour and never really do that. So we're moving forward with that. I know there was a question from the board about the state rated capacity at, Swan Meadows, so I started that process to get that rectified. I do have the documentation. I think we'll be fine to get it back to the number, that it was. I'll be here next month for the grants to award, for the project, to start that construction pretty much the day after the board meeting if everybody agrees. Okay, and how that goes, feasibility study, that process is moving forward to get that going, to start that in January. All right, and as for the board wishes, the CIP submission, for FY '23, that was adopted, has all been completed. Okay? Yes. Any questions?
Yeah, so there's legislation that was proposed last year, and may go through this year, buying solar collectors on top of the buildings, and whenever you plan for new buildings, you need to put solar collectors on. Have you looked into, what that's gonna cost us?
No, I have not looked into that.
And that's something to keep in, if they require that,
Yeah.
I think there'll be some exceptions. If you have enough, field around, you could always put them in, solar collectors in the field, but, that's gonna be coming.
I know that we had to provide an analysis through our submission for Grantsville, based on,
So you had to do that for Grantville, you had to,
yeah, we had to do that as part of the submission, based on a certain criteria. I don't believe the building met what they were looking for. Okay. We have to look at it.
yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
I just have one question.
Mhm.
The mistake, it was under this, it was actually the one before. We got the maintenance project update, which is our roof restoration, boiler, and blacktop, which is in there.
Yeah.
So when I look at, I don't remember seeing these boxes before. When you look at Bradford Elementary, like in the year 25 on, it has an X. What does that X mean?
Based on the adopted plan as we go forward, Bradford wouldn't be in existence during that fiscal year. So put an X there. If everything as we have strategically planned goes to where, plans where it needs to be.
So was it, so I thought the study, whatever you want to call it, the plans moving forward, it was supposed to be something where it could be, them as one school, Broadford as a school, Southern Middle School, or if you combine them into one school, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's undetermined yet if it'll be, what the outcome will be, correct?
It's undetermined and it'll be part of the feasibility study.
Right, that's what I meant, okay, no decision's been made, but, okay. Thank you.
Okay. Educational Specifications Committee appointment, Rich, you want to go over that with us?
Yeah, as part of the Broadford Southern Middle project, we are getting ready to embark on doing the educational specification as required by the IEC as part of the submission, followed by the feasibility study on the building. So the memo that you received is an outline of the individuals in the school system that would participate in the educational specification of that new facility. Okay.
Any questions, anyone, about the committee that he's proposing? Okay, sounds good.
Clarification, we see the committee, what all will serve on the committee? So will they have a lot of meetings, like what will they do, I guess I should say, or?
Well, they're gonna develop what exactly instructionally happens within the new facility. Everybody on the list here will have a different task.
Mhm.
I'm only making this assumption until we get to this point, but I'm assuming that a lot of this will be done probably virtually in this new day and age. Probably more smaller meetings to kind of do that, but everybody will have a role that's on this to really develop, what the instructional, and then the feasibility comes behind it and says, can you build it, what you need to build it, satisfy the ed spec.
So is this basically saying that we're combining Southern Middle and Bradford, or is it two separate projects, or that'll come depending on the feasibility study? Like, I'm just trying to understand the
Yeah.
process we're doing here.
I think in the conversations that we've been having with the IAC and looking at just some 30,000, I think it's looking more towards being one facility as opposed to two. I won't rule that out, but I think if you look at some things and some of the things we've been providing, I think that's kind of where the suggestion is probably going to land.
Well, I think that summarizes it very well.
For those of you that, again, are watching, the IEC is visiting next Friday, on 22nd. Part of that visit is for them to look at Southern Middle and Bradford, along with several other schools throughout the county, to give us their impressions as to what they feel would be something that they would be willing to invest in. Because, again, if we're looking at a large capital project, that money is coming 90-10, 90 from them. So obviously, they control the money. So we need to listen to what their thoughts are as well as what our thoughts are, and somewhere we'll land on a decision. It's not going to happen tomorrow, but it's certainly something that over the next course of the next year, we will be invested in quite a lot of time as to where do we go with those two facilities.
Part of this task too is going to look at, some of the things that were outlined in the facilities plan, like the possibility of grade realignment, what that would mean, how that would tell education,
Sure.
what would the impacts of that if you move a certain amount of one grade level up to another school,
Yeah.
all those type things.
That's part of it. I think there's a component where we want to look at creating a new regional special ed center possibly there.
Yeah, so all that
stuff we will.
Feasibility, all of those things.
Yeah,
it's more than just looking at those two
Yeah.
schools.
And we'll have kind of associated costs too,
Yeah.
to kind of complete our task as the conclusion of that.
But again, all this ties into Maryland Blueprint for the Future. Everything kind of ties back into one big sentence.
Yeah.
There are so many things that we will be responsible for as an educational system over the next 10 years, that facilities will have a role in that, to provide that education. Yes, Monica.
So this is basically, you're saying step one, and this will start before long, correct?
Yeah, we're going to do the RFP, put it on the street to hire the firm to put all this together.
That will be for the feasibility study.
As part of the ed spec too.
So so then this group you give us, or these names for the committee, the educational specification committee, so that's like the instructional part of the feasibility study, you're kind of saying, or is that separate from the
It's separate.
feasibility?
You do an ed spec
Yes.
first,
Mm-hmm.
and then you hand that to the feasibility group, and then they take that and do their part based on what is developed by this group of people.
So the timeline's, pretty short on that, right?
Yeah, we're still looking at a January and then to present to the board in August, I believe is the timeline, for a September acceptance to go to the ISC in October.
Right.
So will it be a part or a group where, I know before in the past, we've had different studies and things done, we've had a parent piece of it, like involved in it. So what would that be?
Yeah, I don't know if we indicated.
No, because I didn't see any parents on here. I mean, there could be someone's a parent, but that would be like a double role as an employee and a parent.
Have to go back and look at the past practice.
No, there was something. Matt, do you remember what we've had? We've had some parents.
I actually been looking it up because I thought that was something that was at least expected somewhere. But yes, I did think there was supposed to be.
Okay.
But we can find out for sure.
Okay.
Okay, anything else? Anyone? Okay, thank you, Rich.
I just have a brief.
You are finished.
Oh, I thought you were looking at me.
No, I was making sure you were finished.
Yes.
Okay, superintendent action plan, strategic planning.
Yeah, I just wanted to, update the board and the public. You've been hearing about, the superintendent action plan. One of the main components of the superintendent action plan is the improving internal and external communication, and, we have an update on two, components of that. One is, to revamp the website. Mr. Gank and I have been working on a project to, completely overhaul the district website, and then subsequently the school sites. I'll be seeking feedback from the principals on that as well as we work through that project, and hope to have some templates out soon. And then we also are replacing we have 6 or 7 candidates for our public information officer, our manager of public relations and communications. I think we had 6 to 7 very good candidates, and we're working now on the first round has been completed, and we're working on the second round. So we should have that position filled, and those two things will be part of the overall plan for the improving the internal and external communication, as will be work with the blueprint that we've talked about a good deal this evening. Just wanted to provide a brief update on that.
Okay, JRAA, confidentiality of student records, policy and procedures is an action item tonight, presented by Mr. Hummel.
Coming back again to ask for approval based on policy committee meetings and reviewing it at the last board meeting for updating the policy JRAA and procedure JRAA, confidentiality of student records.
Okay, Madam Superintendent, do you have a recommendation?
Yes, I recommend that we approve this. Mr. Hummel worked very hard on the changes to both the policy and the procedure. You would be voting on the policy this evening to accept his recommendation, accept the changes to the confidentiality of student records policy.
Okay, it's been recommended we accept the JRA confidentiality student records policy that we're actually voting on. Is there a motion as such? Motion by Jason. Second by Matthew. We can have discussion. Any questions about the policy and or the procedure, although we're just voting on the policy? Yes.
Yes, this is our second view, and I see you did scratch out that one wording that I had requested. Thank you.
Yes.
Because it makes it more clear.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Okay, hearing none, there is a motion on the floor to adopt JRA confidentiality of student records policy. Those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay. And it is adopted.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr. Hummel. Thank you.
And now we move on to the GAB teacher evaluation policy and procedure. This is a revision, so it'll be presented by Dr. Miller.
So I'm here tonight to present for the first read the GAB teacher evaluation policy and procedure. It has gone through our policy committee at this time, and you will notice that there are a large number of revisions. The last time this policy and procedure was updated was 20 years ago in 2001. And so we really needed to take this opportunity to update this policy and procedure to align with our current practice, and also, very importantly, align with new legislation and so the revisions that you see here reflect both of those things, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
This is the first read.
It is the first read.
You said it did go through the policy committee.
It went to the policy committee last month, yes, sir.
Or some corrections.
Yes, we made the revisions from the policy committee.
Okay. Any preliminary questions? Or we save them for the next month? Monica?
When I look at your policy on it, it's actually pretty clear on a bunch of things. Like, I do have a question on the back page. We have the staff categories, it's like classroom teacher, who's evaluation. So like, where would an instructional assistant or intervention teacher, they get evaluated, or is
So
all staff get evaluated every year. However, this policy and procedure is specific to these staff categories. So there are other policies and procedures that we have in the bank to be updated, but we needed to start somewhere. And this was our starting point. So this policy is aligned to the COMAR and the regulations specific to teaching roles and the roles that are listed here.
Okay, so those would be on a different, policy procedure number then, you're saying?
Correct. Okay, all, like, it support staff,
Okay,
administration, they would, obviously wouldn't fall under this particular policy and procedure because they're not in a teaching function, a
Right.
teacher's role. But they all get it, I just want to make sure we're clear that every employee does get an evaluation.
I just happened to see they weren't in the breakdown, so I was just wondering, okay. And then when you look at E, definitions for non-tenured teacher.
Yes.
Like the last sentence on that. A certified teacher who has achieved tenure in another state but is new to Garrett County Public Schools. Okay, in this case, the teacher will be considered non-tenured for a period of 3 years with Garrett County Public Schools. So, not so much that they've moved from here from Garrett County, but say they was, I don't know, a grade level teacher for, say, a grade for 1 year, and then something came up, they're still in Garrett County schools, but they went to another grade for the next 2 years. Would they still be able to get tenure even though they weren't in the same position? That's my question.
So they'd have to have 3 years of satisfactory performance in teaching in Garrett County.
Okay, so it wouldn't matter if it was 2 in 1 grade level.
Could be
and
2 years of first grade and 1 year of second grade. If it's 3 successful years, then they will have tenure on the first day of their 4th year.
Okay. I thought that was right, but I wanted to make sure. And I just have one more thing that I've seen on that I think is good. When you look at A, purpose, I guess when an employee is hired, comes into the system, they see, I guess what an evaluation is, or they get this, so they know what they're evaluated on. So it says it's a mutual agreement with the Board of Garrett County Public Schools and the GCEA.
So at our best class, we have a session that addresses the teacher evaluation and observation process.
Okay.
And then, of course, principals follow up at the school level on that process as well. And they all obviously have a mentor as well that can also walk them through that. So in a variety of ways, yes, we ensure that staff are aware of how they will be evaluated.
Okay. That's my questions for now. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Miller. Under continuing business, so we have the FY 2021 Education Facilities Master Plan. Please present again on this, Mr. Blonsky. This is an action item, so I suspect you have a recommendation.
Yes, I recommend that we approve this Educational Facilities Master Plan this evening. There was a discussion last month about postponing it perhaps. There were some formatting issues, some other things. We fixed those immediately. I believe the following day, if not the day after that, fix those formatting immediately. You heard Mr. Wizlowski say earlier that we do have a visit on October 22nd in which we want to have as many of these approved documents to the IAC in advance of that meeting as we possibly can. So that's another reason I'm recommending this for action. And we did ask that the questions be submitted in advance for this evening. We didn't receive any in advance, so we'd like to recommend that we approve this for action this evening.
Okay. Superintendent's asking that we approve the Educational Facilities Master Plan for 2020, FY 2021. Is there a motion as such?
So moved.
So moved by Rodney. Need a second? Second by Matthew. You know, have discussion. Okay, we were asked to get questions if we had any, so that Rich could be well prepared for any of those. Get them to us earlier. Hearing none, I don't know, are there any questions?
I do. I guess mine is more on, this is the 7th one that I've looked at. And what's one thing important to me is always our ratings. And I mean, overall, considering our buildings, I would say are very well maintained. I'm proud of them all. But there is some, I don't want to say, what you say, red flags maybe. But I'll look at things that's been rated poor. We don't have a lot, but we do have some. Broadford had 3 poor ratings, which is the roof conditions, which you spoke on that one earlier and asked. Ventilation equipment on roof. Crellin has 2, ceilings, interior climate. Southern Middle has 2, equipment on roof, ventilation. Northern High has 2. Equipment on roof, ventilation. So I see several things. Can you explain what the equipment on the roof is?
I'd have to check with the individual, that did that inspection, because there's a lot of equipment out there.
Okay.
I wouldn't know specifically.
But it possibly could be something with our heat, like heating or something? Okay.
I don't want to speculate it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I seen, we had roofs, there was 3 roofs, which was Bradford, accident, which you have that on the CIP, I believe, one of your papers, like you said, they all coordinate together. What we just was on this, or CIP, and it said 2023. The other roof rated pour was Route 40, and it's on there for 2024. And then I guess which we've heard about, and it depends on what extent you look at it. We had 5 schools, and the note said needs renovated, which was Bradford, Crellin, Friendsville, Grantsville, which is in the process of being done now,
Correct.
and Southern Middle. And there was a lot of red lettering, so that means that's new wording from the things that have changed, like you said, they're changing the IC, things that they want correct from.
And just making our
things.
case,
Right.
as the decision process to provide them, to give us what we need.
What is the county comprehensive plan? Is that like our local government, county commission?
Yeah, they have a comprehensive plan.
Okay, so that's why it was for them.
They have, Sierra Wakefield, I believe, is the new individual in the county.
Yes.
I've had communications with her, but I've not had the opportunity to meet her yet. She'll be on our committees as we
Yeah,
go
her name
forward.
was listed.
Yeah.
Okay. When you look at page 9, under fast facts, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, the 5th one down. And only 1 school is projected to be operating within their state rated capacity in the fall of 2021. It doesn't say which school. And like when we're saying state rated capacity, does that mean what the state said the number should be? Like is that
It's our identified state rated capacity. So yes, we have only 1 Rockford that's within the capacity.
Okay.
That's the term.
When you look at page 10, the 3rd paragraph, it says consequently, space needed for special programs exists in each of the 12 schools to varying degrees. So like special programs, like at secondary level, would that be like career and technology or?
Yeah, I would, that's more instructional person, but
Okay.
yes.
Because I was just trying, I don't remember hearing that in the past, like when it's plugged their budget that we, for special programs. On page 11, the 3rd paragraph, it says in 2019, the Board of Education received a series of recommendations from an outside consultant and have implemented some of them in the capital improvement and strategic facilities plan. Is that referring to the 5-year strategic plan?
Yeah, that's the strategic plan, the board.
That's what I mean. I think it said 5-year. So I was wondering if that's the one that it's in reference to.
So that's the outside consultant. I've been Dr. Leaver's report.
The facility.
Okay.
Facility plan of the board.
Well, the reason I'm asking is that was even, I believe, the same wording was in our audit. We voted on that, and it wasn't a unanimous vote. The vote was 3-2. I didn't know, I mean, it doesn't say that it was a unanimous vote, but it refers to it a lot.
It doesn't matter if it's unanimous.
Right. Okay, but it's referring to the 5-year strategic plan, is that correct? Is that what I believe?
That we approved.
Okay. Because the ed specs and all that will be, that'll be part of the discussion. On page 17, the third paragraph, it's in red. It's something, like you said, some of the red was things that have been, projects that's been done since last year. It talks about Southern High School, sidewalks, paving, brick replacement, vestibules, added accolades, Axon Elementary, LED light bulbs. Should we include, our turf fields and tracks in that, or not, because they're not totally, the lighting is not done to that, or should we not? I would just,
I went debated on that. I didn't really seek to see this as educational facilities master
Okay.
plan. I wasn't really sure, that would tie into this report.
okay. Yeah, I'm not
I didn't really seek advice on that. I just
Okay.
kind of made, come to my conclusion myself that I didn't know if that was something that was needed in this document. We have it cited in other documents.
I think I've seen that when it was listed under the schools, maybe.
Yeah.
I think we have it listed
Yeah.
there, so I didn't know, that's what I was questioning. Yeah, I actually have that under Southern High. Yeah, so like when you look at Northern High on page 73, you do have it on there, fiscal year 20 installed synthetic turf field at the stadium, and name the other things, and you have the marquee sign like you showed, repaired overlay the track with a rubber.
Yeah.
Yes, but my question on there, if it should or shouldn't be, when we have up further above, like it says where some of the funding came from, it says aging school program funds. I didn't know if we should put on there somewhere that, I guess from the,
Yeah,
or, you know what I mean? I don't know if it means any bearing, but we've listed it in some of the other things where the money came from.
That's an easy addition.
If it had any importance or not.
I think from a historical perspective, just kind of.
I did have a question. You did make a comment earlier on our state rate of capacity, which I questioned in the past. The state changed it, I believe, what was it, in when we did 2019, I think it was, what the numbers are now is what they was, last year, 2020. And there was something you said about Plum Meadow earlier, like, it says the state rate of capacity is 91.
Yeah, there was, we had a meeting with the IC with Superintendent Baker, and we had a briefing on state rate. I don't want to really get into this too deep. But back in 18, when they did this, schools were using facilities for a lot of different things based on what a map said that it was. The state decided, you know what, a classroom is a classroom based on its square footage, regardless of what you identified it. So a lot of times, what they had done, they went back to square footage. That if it meets this, then the capacity of the room is that. Not really thinking that, they just wanted to go back to kind of that. And that's kind of it in a nutshell. There's a lot more to that. There was an extra room identified in Swan Meadow that was counted within that square footage that then led to the higher number. But we know it's not a room. We've been in the building, so that's what I'm rectifying in that case, okay?
So with these state rated capacity, then I'll move on to ask more questions. Like the numbers they said initially, like say 2018, 2019, was that the number, like when the school was built, is that what it would have been built for? Or would it have, like you said, it changed in say 2018, 2019? Like 20 years ago, did they change the numbers? I think some of our schools are pretty old.
No, that was during that year. I mean, it's a form that it was taken on by a group of individuals who went back and re-looked at every school. You know, you complete the form, how many rooms, and then it kind of does a calculation for you. And then it was sent back to the school system, more or less verifying that we accept your new state rated capacities. Again, that's just a real brief explanation.
Right.
I wasn't here at that time, but that's, I don't know what past that or you know, what the intention with that was. It might have been leading up to strategic facility planning, which kind of would make sense to me a little bit, but I'd just be speculating.
I guess maybe I misstated my question. Like the initial numbers on here, would that have been when a school was built? Would it have had like it was built for a certain number of students probably? It's like, I'm wondering.
That school was built in the 1800s.
Well, I guess I'm referring kind of to Southern. Like Southern state rated capacity in 2018 was 819 students. Now it's at 1,450. You know what I mean? Like some of the schools have a big.
Allison, you might have some
Yeah,
sort
so
of.
one thing that you have to understand is that as principals change, the use of the
Right.
room changes.
Mhm.
And per COMAR, if a room is used as a gym space, then it's this number of students as the capacity, regardless of the square footage. So that's how the capacity, the state-rated capacity could change.
Mhm.
And the footprint doesn't change at all because it was a first grade classroom, now it's a music room. And that changes per COMAR how many students are state rated for that building.
Mhm.
But
That makes more sense.
But what you can't do is if the building is underutilized and you're not using it as a classroom, you can't then deduct it, like, and say that, you know, it's still a classroom. And there still should be a number attached to it.
What if you walled it off,
Or, yeah, you could change the square footage of it.
rent it out to a business or something?
There you go. Yeah, you could, there's some things around it.
And on page 122, this is in red wording. It's just one sentence. Facility needs summer will be inserted in fall in the CIP, which CIP was an action item last month. Facility needs summary. What is a facility needs
That would
summary?
be the CIP. That's a standard document.
Oh, okay, so it's the same thing as the CIP then, okay,
Yeah, it just needs to be inserted.
okay. That had me confused, the red lettering, and it was something new. That's my question, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from any of the board members? Thank you, Mr. Vosky, your plan is extremely well presented. We have a recommendation on the floor from the superintendent to accept the educational facilities master plan for FY 2021. Those in favor, signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay. And it is unanimous.
Thank you.
We now have the GCPS reopening plan update. This is just a quick overview of where we are with our reopening by the superintendent.
Right, this will be a brief update as well. We continue to work every single day to educate our students in the best atmosphere that we can. The reopening plan has gone through several revisions. The updates are on our website. And we do have a dedicated email address for anyone that is reviewing that plan and would like clarification on anything. And we are also seeking feedback on the plan. It does require another revision after 6 months or so. And that email address is reopening.plan@garrettcountyschools.org. Thanks to Mr. Gang for helping us set that up. So we are seeking feedback on that. And, you know, as far as the pandemic, we continue to monitor cases every day. Mrs. Aiken has been instrumental in working with the school nurses, the principals, the instructional team. We do have a number of students in quarantine. It's more than we would like, but I believe those numbers are trending down somewhat, which is good news. And also I wanted to let the board know and the public know that I'm continuing to work with my PASAM group, which is the superintendent group, and the Maryland Department of Health. We had a meeting last Friday virtually. We have another meeting this Friday virtually. And we're looking to see if there are any adjustments that can be made to the quarantine rules so that we can keep as many students in-person learning as we possibly can, especially since there is a statewide mask mandate in place. And so we will keep the board and the public apprised of any changes that may come regarding those guidelines. We also did revise, again, thanks to Dr. Miller, Mrs. Aiken, and their teams, Mr. Hummel's team, on notifications of principals, bus drivers, all the instructional teams, if we do have students that need to be in quarantine. And we did improve our communication as far as when parents could pick up work, when that work was to be returned. Those are specific to each school, but each school has identified a liaison that will work with the parents and the students to ensure that they do have access to their work in whichever format suits them the best, and when that is to be returned, so that we can ensure that the instructional process continues while we continue to grapple with all of the implications of the pandemic. So
Are there any questions
definitely a team effort.
for the superintendent about where we are with our reopening plan and how things are going in the season?
Okay, thank you.
Hearing none, our student member, again, is ill tonight. We wish Leah the best. She'll be killed real soon. Made committee assignments, so you have a pass out in your folders about May. I assume we will try to get those to Karen as quickly as possible. I don't know if right now we have somebody on the budget and somebody on the legislative, both of you. Hopefully you'll want to stay with that, but let Karen know.
Yeah, I'm on both the legislative and the main executive committee. A lot of times they repeat the same stuff at both meetings, so if somebody else wants to be on the legislative committee, I'm totally good with that.
I'm not on budget. I think I'm on LSA.
You were on budget, weren't you?
I used to be.
Yeah, I think you took LSA.
I took LSA when Charlotte left.
Yes.
Well, who's on budget then?
I thought it was Jason, but.
Anyway, if somebody has a burning desire to be legislator, I'm okay stepping down.
We don't have.
Oh, there's
And I'll continue doing it.
that's, if you're willing to do it, you're good to that. Legislative.
You do have to get up at 7 in the morning at the main conference to go to the legislative.
Yeah, that's the worst part.
Breakfast, yeah.
It's interesting, the
I
legislative.
thought it didn't start till 9, and Rodney was so sad.
We'll let Karen know
I had to go to bed.
which ones you're willing. If you're willing, and the rest, if you're willing to serve, somebody wants to serve on some of the other committees, you're more than
Yes,
welcome.
please.
Let her know that as well.
And we will definitely get the information out about the training on the 17th as well.
Correct.
The May training.
Board member updates. You guys want to tell us a little bit about May real quickly?
I thought it was a good way to spend a couple days networking with fellow board members from across the state. We did hear the state superintendent give a speech, a couple other good keynote speakers, and Clarence Crawford was there too, the president of the Maryland State Board of Ed. Breakout sessions dealt with a lot of things. There were several on COVID. There were several on how can you address underserved and low income populations in the schools. I didn't think that was, well, that wasn't one of the better ones, but because it just talked about two things: the local management boards and the boys and girls clubs, which don't even impact Garrett County. We have a lot of other type clubs that do impact Garrett County, and I wish I had mentioned them, things like 4-H and, Boy Scouts and those type things. But generally, they were good breakout sessions. I thought the vendors were pretty good. There was one really amused me. There was a vendor from Allegheny County that was basically promoting their face mask. It was a little clear mask, and you saw one person come out of the building or out of the room with one on. I pretty soon I saw like 20 or 30 people, and I said, "What is this?" I mean, I don't think that's approved by CDC or anybody else. And
Yeah, they were all open out.
yeah, they're all open. And it's like masks. When somebody sees something, oh, that's a good idea, and everybody just assumes it's going to keep them safe. And I thought and talked to them, and they said, "Well, how do you know your face mask is working?" But they supposedly had some it would be a game changer if the FDA or if the CDC accepted something like that. You could see you could see the entire face, and it was pretty good. I got information on that. I might look into it a little bit more. But I thought it was just funny after the exhibit hall opened up, and then you saw all these people try, and some of them continue to wear it throughout the meeting. So there's a good vendor there that does website design, and they had a little layout for Garrett County all set up. So if you're interested in looking at that, I'll forward that.
Sure.
I thought I brought it, but I'm not sure I have it. But it was good networking time. Good food.
I like going to Annapolis better than Ocean City.
Yeah.
Also the COVID-19, yeah, we had, that was a good presentation on the policies and long-term things, so we got a lot of that information. Then I think you touched on most of the ones I took I went to St. Mary's County. They were doing a teacher academy of Maryland, which might be a way to look at building our teachers and growing them from within, so that might be a program that we look at. All the PowerPoints and things are on the May annual conference site, so if you want to look there, they have all the handouts and everything.
I thought the state superintendent was a good presentation. He was not at all what I thought I would see.
Very
Calm.
very interesting gentleman.
He said he's been meeting with your group every
Yes,
time.
and he was at the meeting on Friday with MVH as well, and we have, we've been working with him to help, with some of the, issues that every district is having with attendance and quarantining and those things, so he's been very helpful thus far.
It's kind of important. We need to get his support on, things like, hold harmless on attendance and that type of thing, because that can ensure that our money won't be impacted, next year, the lower numbers that we just fairly. So,
the state board took some heat from their transparency and all those kind of things. They had questions because of how we wouldn't find out till the governor's.
Yes, that was an
He addressed
issue.
that some, so.
Yeah, that was an
He
issue.
was easy for him to address it though. He's like,
He wasn't here. Yep, wasn't here. Yep, absolutely.
Anything else, board members?
Yes, we wish Leo.
for, sending us, I appreciate it.
Okay, I'll take a motion to adjourn. So moved by Jason, seconded by Monica. Those in favor of adjourning public session, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. We are adjourned.
Thank you.